Hi, this video is for those who are volunteering in the year 2 classroom, so year 2, especially those who are going to be teaching. This video is for you. So if you're not a year 2 volunteer, go ahead and skip to the next video. All right, year 2 volunteers. This video is going to be a quick overview of the curriculum and the teacher planner that you're going to be receiving to teach in our year 2 classroom. So important for you to know, you are teaching in sacramental preparation. So that means that you are given a calendar of classes and you teach each lesson on the date that it's supposed to be given. I'm going to show that in a second, but that's important for you to know because you'll be taking attendance via sign in and sign out with parents. And if a child misses class, their parents will receive an email from me with instructions for how they can complete the missing lesson at home. You want to face out, baby girl? Let's see if Julia will let me do this. She might be enthralled by baby mirror right now. All right, so if you need to stay on calendar for that reason, because for our sacramental prep, we require children have 100% lesson completion in order to get their sacraments. So parents are expected to help the kiddos complete any absent work at home. And I give them the instructions to do that using an online module. So just for you to know, that's why we are tied down to a calendar. It's also important that we get through these units because we are, again, preparing the kiddos for their sacraments. Now, you are teaching in our year 2 class. So these kids will have already gone through year 1 and will be entering the second year of their preparation. At the end of the year, they'll be having their confirmation and first communion, and sometimes their baptism if they're RCIC kids. They will be baptized at the Easter Vigil in that case. So we have a lot of work to do to get these kiddos ready for their sacraments. So let me share. Oh, actually, before I do, the kiddos will be bringing back their Catholic Children's Bible. That's something that they received last year. On the spine, it should have some of their kind of name and stuff. You'll be getting new labels to relabel those Bibles so that each kid's Bible is easy to identify based on the spine. And our curriculum is based on this Catholic Children's Bible. This is a great Bible. It's amazing because you can open it up and see, like, verse by verse. This is a regular Bible. So you could look up any verse in the Bible in here. However, because it's designed for children, the font is a little bit larger. It's a little more spread out. Some of the language is more simplified, but you can only simplify the Bible so much if you're going to maintain its structure. But the particular point that's different about this Bible is it has what are called featured stories. So when you're reading through the text, you'll see little green leaves, like tree leaves, kind of on the side of different sections of text. And that indicates that there is an accompanying featured story. That looks like this. So the featured story on the one side will have an illustration of what is happening in that featured story. The one side will have a snippet of the actual text of the Bible. There's Julia falling asleep. And then the other side has an understand it section, a live it section, and a tell it section. And each of the lessons that you teach for confirmation and first communion, which is our Eucharist unit, each one of those lessons is going to be drawing from this Bible. So part of your lesson rhythm as you get into teaching is going to be getting the kiddos to open their Bibles, find verses, identify the featured story, and read that all together. So that's built into the curriculum that you're going to be receiving. Now, kiddos, for both confirmation and communion, see, this is our Eucharist little folder that they'll be receiving. See, there's a folder inside, there's stickers and a little map that they can follow, and then there's actual leaflets for each lesson. This is the leaflet for chapter 1. So when you teach chapter 1, your lesson plan is going to tell you, get the leaflet, get the activity sheet out, turn to the first page, there's the prayer. And it's going to say, turn to the inside of the leaflet, and there's activities that you're going to be completing. Those are identified in your lesson plan. And then each back of these has a family page so the parents can see what was talked about in class. So that's going to be the materials that support you when you're teaching. Last year, our confirmation didn't come in a folder. It was a little strange. So we might just, I don't know what we're going to do for confirmation if that's the case, just as an FYI, but that will be something that all the kiddos are referencing as you teach. So let's go ahead and share my screen. So this shows you our week by week lesson plan. So September 13th, you're starting right into confirmation, chapter 1. Confirmation is our shortest unit of the entire program. There's only 4 chapters in confirmation. So you're going to get confirmation wrapped up really quick. And you're going to be starting the Eucharist actually at the end of October, right before All Saints Day. Don't worry. We are going to be doing some refreshers on both our confirmation and Eucharist lesson toward the end of the year. And then there's a number of things that are built into this calendar in case we have weather days, and then we have some family interviews happening as well. I'm going to talk about that in another video. But let's get into the actual curriculum. So I have digital copies of this curriculum. So you'll be receiving an actual hard copy of the curriculum. So it might look like this is for our reconciliation, but it'd be basically the same with a spiral binding, or it might look like, this, where there's an actual like folder and a printout, and it contains copies that we've received permission to make. So you'll have physical copies of your teacher's guide, but if you would prefer to have a digital copy, I can send that to you. The nice thing about having a digital copy is you can actually, if you have the right tool, you can actually, nope, that's not it. Anyway, there's a way that you can actually select and copy paste text from the digital copy. And that's nice if you wanted to recreate your own lesson plan or whatever. I'm getting ahead of myself. So here's the confirmation teaching guide. All of our teaching guide, have a header page, copyright material, and then they launch into a table of contents where you can see at a very high level what is happening chapter by chapter. Usually below that, oh, that's the select. So see, I could copy and paste that if I wanted. There's some information about the overall course objectives. This is worth reading through, no matter what curriculum you're working from. And then you have another eagle eye view of the entire course. So this tells you which chapters what the lesson goals are for each chapters, the featured story. So you can quickly see, what is this course is going to be covering lesson by lesson. This is the program component. So this is what the kiddos are going to receive. They have a Bible. Teaching guide is yours. We have activity booklets. We have this little treasure map that they're going to be working from. And then the next couple pages, they use chapter 1 as an example, but they are telling you what is happening in your teacher guide. So it's always good to start with your background focus as a catechist to understand, a little bit of the foundation from which to teach. So that's good to read through for you. This is where you go into your lesson plan, yada, yada. So this tells you what is actually happening in your lesson plan, like an organism. And this tells you what is happening in those activity booklets, like as an organism. And then following that, we will get to the actual lesson plans. So each lesson plan is going to be pretty similar. You're going to have the number, the name, you're going to have this background information, which you read through as a catechist. There's going to be the lesson objectives or lesson goals here to the side so you can understand like what is it that the kiddos are supposed to be walking away knowing. It's going to talk about any materials that you need to have. And then we have the actual lesson plan. So all of our curriculum has the lesson plan that's in a very similar format. So you have sections. A lot of times it'll tell you how long a section should take. And then there's subsections. And then there's bullets. And those bullets are the instructions to you as the person teaching the lesson of what to do. So for instance, the very beginning of this says, invite the children to turn to page 1 of their chapter 1 activity booklets. So that's basically saying, all right, kids, everyone pull out their chapter 1 activity booklet. And what do we do when we see this? We always start with the prayer in the front. So lay those booklets down. Begin, the next bullet says, begin prayer by leading the class in the sign of the cross. Then say, let us remember we are in the holy presence of God. And then have some silence. And then choose a child to volunteer as the prayer reader for this lesson. Or you could have an assistant, read the prayer. And then, sign of the cross at the end. So this gives you bullet by bullet instructions of what to do. Format wise, most of these lessons are the same. They start in prayer. There's a little bit of an initial activity that relates to the lesson and those key objectives for the lessons. Then we dive into the Bible. So the Seek section is all about going into our children's Bibles, and it's going to talk about the featured story. It's going to have you ask the kids to navigate their Bibles to a particular chapter and verse of a book. It's going to call attention to specifically a featured story in that section, and it's going to give you like prompts for what to do. So sometimes you're going to be having the kids close their eyes while you read the entire section of a Bible story. Other times you're going to focus on the snippet in the featured story. Most of the time there's some review questions that you ask to check for understanding. And then you're going to be going onto that other page where you have an understand it section in that featured story, a live it section, a tell it section. And then you're done with your Catholic Children's Bible. And then you often go into a learning activity, sometimes using your activity sheet, sometimes doing something as a class, but you follow these bullets. So when you are about to teach, the week before you teach, sometime during the week, take an hour and read through your lesson. Just read bullet by bullet so you understand where you're going. Reread those lesson objectives again, because those are the core pieces. And, depending upon your style, like for me, I would actually kind of recreate the plan in Word so that I was just kind of reading a script almost. Some people can just literally look at the bullets and start teaching from them. It depends upon what your style is and what you're most comfortable doing. There's no wrong answer as long as you're following the lesson plan and you're teaching to those lesson objectives. So you keep on going, find closing prayer, and then say you just get through material really fast all the time. You won't know this till maybe you've taught like 1 or 2 lessons. But if you tend to be kind of a speed teacher or you just have a really compliant group, that can happen. There are always activities at the end of each chapter that you can add in to be like a time filler. So those are good to be aware of as well when you're doing your lesson planning, so that if you have 20 minutes at the end and you're like, oh, we are ready to do the closing prayer, maybe take the pause on the closing prayer and throw to one of these activities instead. So again, we're in our confirmation unit. There's only 4 chapters. So you can start seeing like how fast that goes. And then all of a sudden we're done. There's actually a section on the renewal of the baptismal promises. That's going to be something that we cover in the spring. So just for you to be aware of, keywords, etc. It's a short chapter. Our Eucharist, we're zooming through that. Our Eucharist is a little bit of a longer lesson. So there's 10 lessons in the Eucharist unit. And same thing here. This is also by St. Mary's Press. So structurally, it's going to be similar. So once you've gotten used to teaching in the confirmation unit, when you enter the Eucharist unit, it's very much the same framework. It's just going to be new lesson objectives because we're teaching toward a new sacrament. So we can get, sorry about the zoomies. I have this, I think, on the wrong section to scroll. This is our eagle eye view of all 10 chapters. So you can understand, what the lesson goals are, chapter by chapter, the different keywords that we're going to be focusing on, the featured story for each. So you can get an idea. Same thing that we saw in our confirmation unit. This is going to walk us through, the actual teaching, like lesson planner as an organism. This is going to walk us through those activity sheets. And then it's going to dive in to that initial lesson plan. So as we kind of flip through this looks very similar to what we just saw in the confirmation unit. So we are going to get into a pattern, and when you go from the confirmation unit into the Eucharist unit, it's not going to be a huge change in how you approach the curriculum. So as you develop, the best fit for doing a lesson plan, for preparing a lesson and teaching, it's going to be very much the same when you move between confirmation into the Eucharist. Now, let me quickly mention one more time. This is our calendar of classes. So for the very first part of our classes, you're going to really be teaching those units. We have at the very end of December, there's a weather cancellation flex night. So if we lose a night in here because there's a school closure, we will bump all the curriculum by 1 week. And so instead of this being a flex night, this will be Eucharist 5. However, if we don't have a weather event, you can actually have a Christmas party on that night. We continue on through teaching the Eucharist. Oh, I messed up. It's not 8, it's 10 lessons. So I'm gonna have to restructure some of this. I don't know how I did that. Anyway, the second half of the year, we do have our Eucharist review lesson. I'm going to provide you the curriculum to do that. And we also have a confirmation review lesson. I will provide the curriculum for that. And that's when we're going to get into the rite of confirmation as well. Then we have a couple of flex nights, which actually might wind up becoming Eucharist 9 and 10 now that I realized I messed up there. And then in the month of April, we are going to be going into family interviews. So you'll be completed with teaching through all of the lessons of these 2 units by April, because then we move into a new phase of our program. And volunteers are going to be working and doing some of those family interviews. I'll talk about them when we get closer, like December, January. We did these last year. They were great. But it's going to be you sitting down with a kiddo with their parents there, asking the kiddo a series of questions that I give you and marking whether a kiddo understands or not. So that's going to be some of our volunteer phase as we get into April. For those, I particularly want those that are teaching to be the interviewers, and I really need 2 per class, 2 people to be interviewing. And then that third classroom assistant is kind of supervising the kiddos that are not doing interviews as they do, hopefully having a clergy visit. We'll have our priests and our deacons come to talk to the kids in those weeks, or I'll have a movie of some kind. And then at the very end of May, prior to their confirmation masses happening, we're going to have a sanctuary tour and a sacraments review lesson. And then if I jump over to our overall calendar, this is tentative, but we've put in a request for the dates for confirmation masses the end of May 19th and May 26th. So that's going to be when the majority of the students in your year 2 class receive their sacraments. For those who are RCIC children, you'll see that on the attendance list. It'll indicate that kiddos are RCIC. Those children have not yet been baptized. And so those children will be baptized and fully sacramentalized. So they'll receive baptism, confirmation, and Eucharist at the Easter Vigil, which is going to be March 30th this year. All right. I hope that this gives you an idea of how you're going to approach curriculum with our year 2 class. It's very simple once you get going. For those of you that don't have teaching experience, just take a look at those lessons, in the week ahead, spend an hour, look, through all the bullets to familiarize yourself with the overall lesson, and then just follow the instructions bullet by bullet. It's really easy. Anyone can do it. If I can teach, you can teach too. Believe me, I'm a disaster. So I hope this is helpful in preparing you to be a volunteer in our year 2 program. So see you at the next video.